if somebody is very lively and outgoing and vibrant and all of their friends and family know them to be that way, when you get to like pick a color scheme and pick flowers that represent them in that way, I can't tell you how many guests have like walked into a space and said like, oh, this feels so, I'm going to use my bride from last weekend, so Kiana, or this feels so Anna, or so this. Like, you want it to be reflective of who they are. So I feel like we get to do that with our art.
Welcome to the Candid Wedding Podcast. I'm your host, Alexis, a Florida-based wedding photographer. Here we talk to brides and wedding professionals to help you have a stress-free wedding day. I hope you enjoy the show. Don't forget to subscribe and share with a friend. Hello and welcome back to the Candid Wedding Podcast. I'm Alexis, and today we have a very special guest. One of my vendor besties is here. Very excited to be able to talk to her. Everybody, welcome Allie Smith.
So happy to be here.
Can you introduce yourself really quick and like what you do? Just give us a little bit of a background.
So I'm Allie Smith. I am the owner and lead floral designer of Flowersmith. I guess technically I've been in business for 5 years, but it doesn't feel like that. I feel like that's a huge milestone. It doesn't seem that way at all. Technically, that's when I registered my LLC.
Okay.
How long have I been an actual full-time wedding florist? Way shorter than that. I think like 2 years, technically. But I am from Connecticut originally, but I grew up in Orlando, so I'm technically a Florida girl. And we've been in Tampa for like 6 years now, I guess.
Awesome. How'd you get into becoming, do you say florist or floral design?
I say floral designer.
Okay.
Florist is the
It's
easiest,
very different.
but it's different.
Yeah.
It feels more like retail, storefront, 1-800-Flowers. Floral designer is like, I'm an artist.
Yeah. So how'd you get into floral design?
I feel like this is consistent with most of my colleagues in this industry too, kind of by accident. I feel like there's two avenues to like getting to this conclusion. It's either my mom, my grandma, my sister owned a garden and we helped and we grew up in this industry and I'm taking it over for like the matriarch in my family, or it's like I stumbled upon this by accident. Like I've always loved flowers, but this wasn't like a dream that was unfolding like over the course of my life. It was literally during COVID, got laid off from my corporate job for just like a week. It wasn't even, hey, you guys are being laid off, throw us to the wolves, like you have to find your own way now. It was just, hey, we can't pay you for the next week or two, just take a beat and we'll call you back. And it was the first time in my life I had ever experienced like stillness and slowness. And I was like, I don't even know what to do with my time. And if you remember, everything was closed, but grocery stores were open. And I went to Trader Joe's, and one day I just like picked up flowers while I was there. It was my birthday. And I was like, well, I can't go out to eat. We can't do anything. And I was just making flower arrangements in the house. And just like the joy and stillness that I experienced of just like doing things with my hands, I was like, I have never sat still this long. Like not enjoyed myself, but never sat still long enough to just like be with my thoughts. And I fell in love with that feeling first and just kept doing it. And I just felt this overwhelming, like I'm supposed to do something with this and I don't know exactly what it looks like, but that was kind of the beginnings.
So tell me what a floral designer does. Like if I have no idea what you do, explain to me maybe in general what they do and then maybe what you do if you do things a little bit differently than normal floral designers.
I'll start by saying I probably do a lot of things differently. Yeah. So nobody hold me accountable for what I say. I'm making it up as I go. Some of the best advice I ever got was like just doing what feels right, not necessarily that what is right. Like I remember hearing something, I think that was on a podcast, so maybe we are inspiring people all around. But she said, if you don't know the rules, you can't break them. And that was a huge driver in my business. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have mentors. I'm picking up things here and there from Instagram, but I'm essentially just going to teach myself and follow my gut and follow my prayers, follow my dreams, whatever I envision this to be. That's what it's going to look like. So I'm not speaking for everyone, I guess, when I say this, but so I think a common misconception is that your whole job is Saturday, which I'm sure you feel and understand fully. I remember a lot of people telling me in the beginning, like, this is going to be so cool because you only have to work 1 day a week. And I was like, Even though it's new, it's like, that doesn't seem right, but okay, like maybe that'll be fun. But doing the weddings, like actual execution on the day, is maybe like 20% of the job. I guess the easiest way to do this would be to like run through like what a week looks like. So Monday and Tuesday are usually like slower admin days, going through my emails, placing flower orders, working on design boards, curating floral recipes, working with my wholesaler, marketing, website maintenance, everything that has to do with a computer, pretty much. All of the behind the scenes. And when it actually comes time to prep for the wedding, we're usually picking up the flowers like 3 days before. I know that tends to change based on people's circumstances. Like, do you have a cooler? Do you have a special room to keep everything good? Kind of dictates like when people would pick up their flower order. For me, by the grace of God, I got a cooler like right away. It was actually given to me by my church. Opened a coffee shop. And when the restaurant that was in the place before it closed, they gave me like this industrial sized cooler.
That's amazing.
Which was such a godsend, because it's just not an asset that you get that young in your business. It's going on another tangent, but very grateful. But I'm able to pick up my flower orders like 3 days before. So the day that you pick it up or have it delivered to you, you wouldn't realize it, but everything is like in these boxes that are being like shipped overseas and stuff. So they're like bound with zip ties. Everything's like fresh off the farm. It's been packed. Like the roses are covered with leaves and thorns. The rose stems are not 12 inches. They're like 18 to 20 inches. Like, you unpack everything and some of it still has dirt on it that you're washing off. So I basically get this huge shipment that I unload at my studio, and we call that day processing. So it's just unpacking everything, stripping it, putting it in water, putting it in coolers. It's just half a day of just unpacking it. And then from there, it's like the next 2 days are designing for the wedding. And then of course on the wedding day is like the delivery, actually designing on site if you have big installations and arches, things like that. But that's like a typical wedding week. But before that is just a year of planning with the bride, going over design concepts, placing the orders, collecting hard goods and vessels and inventory to actually put on that wedding. But
because you do more than just the actual flowers. You do like, for some weddings, you do like full design.
Oh yeah. So we'll aid if the bride wants in like selecting linens or selecting anything that like is cohesive with the overall design, so we can advise in that way. So we don't really like overstep the wedding planner, so to speak, but if we're invited into it, that's a big deal. But we also rent out candles and inventory.
Okay, cool.
And things like that.
Do you have like a personal style?
I want to say yes, but I also hate putting myself in a box.
Yeah,
Every time that I do say like, oh, I'm a garden inspired floral designer, I'm like, well, sometimes I want to do stuff that's a little bit more modern and artful. So I like to say I'm unconventional, but like an unconventional garden inspired designer.
I always know when I see florals though, like on Instagram and it's a random photographer, I will literally know it's your florals though. Like I'll click on the photo and see that you're tagged in it and I'm like, I knew it. So like I feel like you have a very distinct design, but that I love. Like it is very unconventional, but I feel like so many brides are drawn to that. I love your style.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's, to be able to be recognized is a big deal.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to set yourself apart, so that's a huge compliment to me.
You definitely do stand apart from other florists.
Very sweet. Thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you.
Why is it important for a bride to have a floral designer for their day?
So this might also be an unconventional answer. I feel like I recognize that floral is not like essential to the wedding day. Like if you wanted to get married without a bouquet and without an arch or without anything on your tables except for candles, you could. Like it's definitely in some ways like a more luxury product that's like a like to have, not a need to have. Like you think about photography and video and it's like, well, we have to have memories from our day. We have to have like a tangible thing to take home with us. And technically that's not flowers. It's definitely like on this spectrum of like, is it something that's important to us? Is adorning the space in things that are colorful and vibrant important to us? So I think I recognize like my place in the market that's like, this is a like to have, and how big you want to go and how grand and how lush is just dependent on the client. personally, I feel like the importance is just that you're adorning a space. Like, you get to make it beautiful. Like, it is your day. Like, it sounds cliche, but people say your wedding is the best day of your life. I know there are life events that far surpass that in the future, but it's just like one day that you get to just even like express yourself as a couple. Like, this floral design is just an element where you can do that. Like, if somebody is very lively and outgoing and vibrant and all of their friends and family know them to be that way, when you get to like pick a color scheme and pick flowers that represent them in that way, I can't tell you how many guests have like walked into a space and said like, oh, this feels so, I'm going to use my bride from last weekend, so Kiana, or this feels so Anna, or so this. Like, you want it to be reflective of who they are. So I feel like we get to do that with our art.
That is amazing. I feel like it's so your personality too is like that's how you love on people, is being able to like curate beautiful like scenarios for people. I feel like you do it so much just in your personal life too, like a girls' night or like
I love a girls' night.
Yeah, and like it's always so cute. So I feel like it comes very naturally to you to like show love to others through pretty things.
Yeah, creating an environment.
Yeah.
I've never thought about it that way.
Well, I guess you kind of just like answered this, but like how do florals add to like a bride's experience?
I think one, it adds to the bride feeling special. Like, when I pass off a wedding bouquet and the bride is in her dress, her hair is done, her makeup is done, like, we've adorned her as a person. But something about like passing someone like an accessory, like something that's beautiful, and like watching them take it in their hands, there's this extra measure of confidence that I've noticed. And it's kind of like they look at their flowers and they're like, these are so beautiful and whimsical and wonderful. And I feel like that's so symbolic of like who, like, this is how we're envisioning you as a bride on the day. Like, you are beautiful, you are radiant. But like, so the way I see like the bride look at her flowers, I'm like, everyone's looking at you, like, that's on your wedding day. But it does add a sense of like, this is who we are as a couple, this is what we find beautiful. Like, I don't know, it's just one more thing to marvel at in the day.
Yeah, that is very symbolic of like, I really like that. I've never thought of it that way. Wow, I love it. What questions should brides ask their florist when they're like first reaching out to them and seeing if they're a good fit?
I think that's a great question. I think a big one, honestly, as much as I believe like what the bride and groom want on their day and how they envision their day is by far the most important. But I think when you go the extra mile to hire professionals for your wedding day, like hiring a floral designer, hiring a videographer, like, you recognize this person knows what they're doing. This person has been doing this a long time. This person does this every weekend. Like, maybe asking them, what are their ideas? Like, after you get to know the bride and groom, like, they could say, here's the colors that we love. Here are words that describe the aesthetic that we're going for, the feeling that we want to have on our wedding day. What would you recommend to put that into motion, rather than, this is what I saw on Pinterest, I want this, I want a copy and paste of exactly what I saw. Like, asking your floral designer or wedding professional, what do you think we could do to invoke this feeling, or to share this aesthetic? So more like, what do you think that coincides with what we're already envisioning?
Yeah, I see that a lot in photography as well, because sometimes the words that they're using to describe their wedding day aren't actually what they're looking for.
Yes.
So they'll tell me like, I want boho, and I'll be like, okay, I'll make a mood board, or like I'll explain to them back like what boho means, and they're like, oh, actually no, that's not what we're looking for. So like, being able to work with them and collaborate with them and take what they're all saying to me but put my own twist on it, it's usually like, yes, that's what we were envisioning, but like, we couldn't put words to it. So I think that's very important, is to like very much so trust your vendors. And I feel like you're also naturally drawn to vendors that you already like the style that they're putting out there. So I feel like that's important too, is to be reaching out to vendors that you already like what you're seeing.
I trust you. Goes so much further than like, here's what I want. I don't know, it just gives us freedom as artists to be like, you do what you do best, and you will receive their best.
That's my favorite thing.
Oh, it feels so good.
Hear the T word.
Oh, it's just as good. It's just as good as a hug. It's as good as anything. Right? You just say, trust you. It's like, we're doing this.
What advice do you have for brides?
What advice do I have? this is probably another cliche one, but I think it's so important, is do what you want to do. Do not let people tell you that is not timeless, that is not classic, that is not bridal. Like, your wedding day is for you and your future spouse. And I feel like a way to resent the choices that you made, like the design choices and things, is to do what other people told you. Mm-hmm. Only you like know what you want. And I feel like the people who go the extra mile to say, like, I know this is kind of unconventional, but it's so reflective of who we are as a couple, go so much further.
Oh, definitely. And
I feel like you could probably agree with this one too. Just a very, very timely one is, don't do what is just happening on Instagram, what's happening on social media. Like, trends are trends for a reason, but if you just pick what you love when it comes to design and vendors and all of these things, like, you won't resent it. But I feel like it's the confidence to be like, this is my time to make decisions, even if I'm an introvert, even if I don't normally like making the calls and checking all the boxes. Like, this is your time to do it, to buck up and make the decisions that you want.
No, for sure. Even for my wedding, like, I'm naturally like very go with the flow. Like, I don't really care. But for my wedding, I was like, I want this, I want this, I want this. And I'm like, who am I right now? But it was very much what I wanted. And when I got married too, I feel like I wasn't looking on Pinterest or like on Instagram as much, or like, and TikTok wasn't really a thing either. So I didn't really have anything to compare it to, but I'm so grateful for that, because I wasn't basing it off of trends. Absolutely. That's like my one thing that I was going to say is like, okay, like, I want your wedding to be based off of who you are as a person. Yeah. But like, sometimes people will come to me like, I saw this on Pinterest and I want to do it. And I'm like, okay, but why? Like, is it because like you actually like it and it's very true to who you guys are as a couple? Or is it because you just like the trend? Like, if you like the trend, I don't really think you should do it. Yeah. Unfortunately. Like, you can do it, but I don't think that you, like, if it's just for photos. Yeah. Like, I don't think it's smart.
That's so true.
I know that you were just saying, like, you're not really a trend person, but are there any trends that are going on right now that you are drawn to, that you personally like?
Maybe I am a trend person. Don't do the trends, but I love the trends, and I will follow them in place.
I am the target audience.
Exactly. I love how earthy everything is. I feel like...
Can you explain what earthy means?
Earthy, like, very textural, organic. I'll make it specific to floral design. Like, all the flowers that are looking like meadows, like they're growing out of the ground in your ceremony space. Anything that's curated and designed in such a way that it looks like it's part of a garden or part of your venue, I love. I think that goes hand in hand with like the garden inspired floral design anyways, but I love that trend that's very like free form and very organic. I feel like we've been building up to that for a couple of years, but now we're just even surpassing it to where it's like, it looks so natural. We're using natural elements, like we're elevating pieces of floral on rock and concrete and beds of moss and these things that are so like just gardeny. Like, it just looks like lush and it looks like it's part of the environment and less like out of place.
If I was getting married again, I would definitely have all the moss. And like, it has to look like a fairy garden.
Oh my God. Yes, fairy. I use that word a lot when working with my brides. I'm like, you want to look like a fairy dancing in the meadow. You don't know that yet, but that's what you want. I promise that's what you want.
Right? Are you really happy that color's coming back into weddings?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Not to toot my own horn, but our wedding was in 2019 and it was so colorful. I had every color of the rainbow in bridesmaids dresses and flowers, and everyone
You were ahead of the curve.
I was ahead of the curve. I was, not on trend at the time, but I remember like our friends and family being like, this is not a circus. This is your wedding day. And I was like, it's actually my circus and my wedding day. But thank you. But yes, I'm so glad. It's my circus. And I get to make the decisions. But all to say, I've been hoping for a while that color would come.
Well, I feel like that's very naturally what you lean towards. Anyways, but you do it in a very classy way with your colors. Like, it's not super loud, but there's color and everything.
It's artful, like it's curated in such a way. And I think that's where kind of like my past comes into play with floral design. I studied fashion So I went to school for fashion merchandising and product development. So I had the background in color and texture and how to combine them and the knowledge of like the color wheel. Yeah. So yes, all to say I'm so glad that color is coming back. It makes my job fun. It makes your guests excited. Like I'm noticing more that guests have told us a lot recently. Like I never really noticed flowers in a wedding until today or until recently, because all the recent weddings that they're going to are not just white roses, and white roses are beautiful if that's what you want, but
they are very
color
classy.
is fun.
I did just see this thing on Instagram, not to look at trends, but they made like the whole aisle walk up to the altar or where they're getting married. It looked like a whole red roses like meadow, and it was
that's
so
beautiful.
Pretty. Yeah,
that is beautiful.
I did think of you again because it was very like unconventional again.
Yeah, loud.
Yeah.
Loud. Maximalism is the goal. Is less is more. No, more is more every day.
Will you give advice based off of the venues, or I'm assuming you would do like a venue walkthrough because yours is very much like working with the venue. Like if they want one thing, will you say like, I don't know if that would work with your venue or something?
Now I do.
Yeah.
I feel like that was a learning curve.
Yeah.
At the beginning, it's yes, captain, whatever you want to do, without like assessing the space first. I think that was like the first 2 years where I was like, of course we can do a large deconstructed arch in front of the lake that has gusting winds equivalent of a hurricane. Like anything for you, princess. But I quickly learned like assessing the space is part of being the professional. Like what is going to be structurally sound in this landscape? What is going to mechanically be able to stand upright and not block a view or horizon line if you traveled across the country because you wanted to get married in front of the ocean? We don't really want to block the view. That eliminates the whole reason for your venue. So yes, we do venue walkthroughs now, and if it's not something that I can do like with the bride, it's something that I'll go do on my own just to make sure. Essentially, you don't want an arch or like a huge installation to fall or be like a safety hazard. So assessing the space is important for design concepts, but just as much like as mechanics and it being like realistic.
Yeah, and like sometimes as a photographer, like I'll see like a beautiful, beautiful arch, but they'll put it like right in front of like this huge oak tree that's supposed to be the main focus or something. And you're like, it's just too much going on. And like you want one or the other to be the focus. Yeah. And yeah. So I feel like walkthroughs are very important for florists. What are red flags that people should look for when hiring a florist company?
I think you can recognize quickly by someone's personality. Like, is this someone who wants to bring my vision to life? Or is this someone who is just wanting to kind of interject like their own design preferences, and this is what's going to get me published, this is what's going to get me good content, this is what's going to get me out there in the floral industry? Like, pay attention to, is someone trying to redirect you a little bit because it's what's realistic for the space, or because, like you were saying earlier, it's more in line with the words that they're using to describe their aesthetic and vision? Or is someone kind of like stomping on your ideas a little bit and not really like listening? Like, pay attention to how attentive they are. Like, when you say you want this, are they advising you in such a way that's like helping you, or they're trying to redirect you and steer you away from that? Like, I know there's a big debate in a lot of the design roles with vendors, like especially floral design, which is like, I only do weddings that are in line with what I like, versus I just do what the bride and groom wants to like or wants to do. And I think it's one thing to like stay true to who you are as a designer and do what you do best, but also do what's important to the bride. Like, if peonies are very important to a bride because it's symbolic of her grandmother, and her grandmother grew peonies, like, you want a vendor who is taking into consideration like your loves, your likes, your dislikes. So I feel like it's kind of just like a moral compass a little bit of being able to read them. Yeah, and being able to like collaborate but not feel like the vendor isn't listening to you. And I think the other big one is, my motto has always been under promise, over deliver. Under promise on what you can do, and then over deliver on the wedding day. This is another one where I feel like you just have to be kind of like emotionally intelligent. Like, is this person promising me things that are probably not achievable? And if you feel hesitant, like, ask your wedding photographer, ask your wedding planner, ask the venue coordinator, like, is this realistic? Can I have this huge hanging installation that my florist is telling me is no problem whatsoever? Like, it's okay to kind of check your boxes and be like a little hesitant, but you just want someone who cares, like, for you as the client and not so much their portfolio that they're trying to build, if that makes sense.
Oh, for sure. So I know floral design pricing can range, huge range. Can you kind of break that down as to why there's such a big price range in designing a wedding?
Yeah, you're right. It's a huge range. No two weddings are the same. I know that sometimes with like retail florists, like mom and pop shops and stuff, you can do more like, this is our package, this is our standard. We kind of do the same thing for everyone. And I feel like a lot of the floral designers in our generation, or just collectively, like what we're going through now, is a lot more custom packages. So like your price ranges based on the scale of the design, the types of flowers you want to include, how lush you're going, size, guest count. But I would say a best way to kind of navigate your pricing is if you have a huge guest list and you've got 20 guest tables and you want centerpieces on all of them, quantity is everything. Like if you think about an individual piece, anything times 20 is going to be a big ticket item. And if you have 12 bridesmaids and 12 groomsmen and you want everyone to have personal flowers, if you multiply any number by a quantity like that, you're going to see the price rise. But yeah, so I'd say guest count is a big one. And installations, like, are you looking for statement flowers? Are you wanting a huge hanging installation hanging over your dance floor? Budgeting in such a way where you're spending most of your budget on the things you really care about. Like some people say, and everybody has a different lens for it. Some people are like, I care about the experience while they're sitting at the table. I want the table to be lush and beautiful. And I know that's where they're going to spend most of their evenings. And some people are like, I just want a really lavish ceremony and I'd rather direct more of my funds towards the ceremony. So I feel like it's a preference thing, but just to not defend pricing, but just give kind of insight to a client, a bride and their family about why pricing is the way it is. It's such a labor intensive business. Floral design happens the whole week up leading to the wedding, but also behind the scenes, all the venue tours, all the meetings, all the planning, all the sourcing. Like if you kind of think about how many hours a floral designer is putting into planning your wedding, and then you think of like a reasonable hourly rate for them, like kind of seeing it with that lens, like I'm not paying them for this Saturday of work. I'm paying them for a year of work, and I'm paying them for the work that comes after the wedding, for all of the cleaning up, all of the picking up the flowers, cleaning up the wedding. We donate the flowers after our wedding. There are just so many hours of labor that go into it. And consider your floral designer is hiring a team. So I'm also paying other people a livable hourly wage to execute this wedding. And we're renting trucks or paying for vehicles and transportation. Like, just try to remind yourself it's more than just the product you're paying for. Like, yes, flowers are expensive, but I feel like a lot of us are trying to change the lingo to flowers are not expensive, floral designers are expensive because of the time that it takes for somebody to design and curate something for you. So yeah, just thinking of it as I'm not just paying for a product and I'm not just paying for one day. I feel like it's easier to
you're paying
digest.
For a specialist.
Yeah.
This is so random, but will you ever take the bouquet from the bride and dry it or anything for them?
Oh my gosh. I tried to learn. It is so difficult. It is a whole job. There are florists who just preserve flowers and make frameable things, coasters, resin art out of them. I tried one time. It was for a wedding that we did together for my friend Alex. Shout out to Alex. I would do anything for her. So when she came to me and asked if I could try to preserve her bouquet, I tried, and I followed like a YouTube tutorial type thing that involved like microwaving the flowers, like pressing them, this whole process. And after I did it, I was so ashamed of what I created. I was like, we're leaving this to the professionals. It's worth every penny. It's a great thing to do to preserve something from your wedding. Just don't ask me to do it. I will tell you about a professional. But I know sometimes even people will get them painted. Someone painted my bouquet, with watercolor. which is safe.
That is really pretty. Yeah, when I try to do myself, I try to just like press it into a book. I don't know why I did
Oh,
that.
you did? A little DIY moment.
Yeah, I just like pressed it into a book and like kept it there for a couple months, opened it, and it was just like all fell apart.
Oh, yeah. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
If someone is quoting you a big ticket to do that, it's worth it to have it done well. I'm forever in debt to Alex for ruining her bouquet.
So thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was so fun having you.
Thanks for having me.
Can you tell everybody where they can find you on social media?
Yes, you can find us on Instagram. It's Flowersmith _ flower _ Smith _ Flowersmith. If you type that in, it should come up. And then my website is flowersmithteam.com. We are not on TikTok yet. I'm a little bit old for TikTok, but if you show me how it works, I will give it my best shot. But that's the best place to find all of our work.
Awesome.
On Instagram.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I'll see you guys next episode.
Bye.